So in terms of today's research, one of the biggest challenges that we have in as parents is that we don't know what does it mean to be raising children in a world where parents are constantly in their phones. Okay, media is fully endless. I mean, they can choose any media they want in any form that they want. And online learning is going to be something that we're going to probably have to deal with. We're living in a pandemic right now, and we don't know what's going to happen, and we know how hard it is for our children to learn. Virtual reality is so close to us, and in my mind, and this is something that authors talk about it's what happens with virtual reality is going to be even more difficult for our children to differentiate between what's reality and what's digital, what is not real. And Harari, he's an amazing, I don't know if you've read him, he's the author of Homo Sapiens and Homo Deus, and he says, one of the biggest skills that you can give to your child is to be able to differentiate between reality and the digital world, okay? Now, we don't have research of that kind, but the good news, I think, is that we do have a lot of research in understanding what the mind of a child needs, okay? And that's big. Therefore, we're going to focus on that. What is it? So when it comes to parenting, for me, is that we're so focused into be these perfect parents, but if we have to shift that into more, what does my child need, instead of thinking about being the perfect parent.
Okay, I have a poll for you guys, 1 second. So those of you that have been to Hatch and Bloom webinars, I know you know the answer, or I hope you know the answer by now. We have a lot of new people, but I want to know how much of the brain is developed by the time a child turns 6. So let's see what you guys think over here. Oh, we're getting good.
This is great.
Yeah.
Okay, we have 5 more responses.
Get them in, get them in. It's like Jeopardy.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to end it right here, and let's share those results. Wow. So most of you said it is 75%. I have a mind-blowing fact for you, which is it is actually 90%. 90% of the brain is developed by the time a child turns 6, in the first 5 years of life. Okay, take a moment and really think about how big that concept is. All of you that are sitting here watching this webinar here tonight, 90% of your brain was developed by the time you turn 6. That leaves 10% for the rest of your life. Most of you might be like, oh my gosh, that's really scary. No, it's an opportunity. It shows you like how much is going on for the child, right? How much is going on in terms of just everything they're taking in from the world. And what we know about brain development, this is really what I want to focus on and really drive home this point, is that we know that yes, genetics and DNA definitely play a role in development, but more and more research shows that environment is so heavily weighted when it comes to how will a child's brain actually be developed and wired. And so let me explain to you a little bit about what I mean by brain development, okay? So a child is born with the structure of the brain. So it's all there, the structure, but the communication channels are not. So I want you guys to think about a business or a company, okay? So let's say that you are opening a business or a company and you create all of your different departments that we're gonna pretend these are like the different departments of the brain, right? So you have customer service, you have sales, you have operations, you have the back end, you have all of these departments. And the problem is no department actually communicates with the other department. None of them have communication. What is going to happen to this business? Is this going to be a successful, thriving business? Probably not, right? Because the communication is actually what makes it function as a whole unit. This is how I want you to think about the brain, right? So a healthy, developing, well-functioning child has lots of communication happening from their emotion center to their logic, from their sensory center to their emotions to their logic. Everything's kind of wired and interconnected all together. And when there's really good communication that flows, this is when a child is really well functioning. and an adult, right? So we know adults that aren't really well functioning in that way either. So how does this wiring actually happen in children? Most of it actually happens in the context of relationships. It really is human to human interactions. Since babies are tiny babies, they don't learn from machines. They learn from people. They can learn so much about the world just by the way that they're responded to by a human. They can learn so much about themselves and how important they are in the world just by the way they're responded to and talked to and touched and felt, and they can learn how important or how to manage their own feelings just by the way that they're responded to, again, by their caregivers. So everything can happen in the context of relationship. Whether a child will actually learn to think that and believe that the world is a place I want to explore and take risks and try new things. This also can happen based on human to human interaction. Are you giving children the experience where they're going to want to go out and explore into the world, right? Or are we giving them the experience where we let them feel like everything is kind of scary or like we need to be overprotective? We're not allowing them room for mistakes. You can see how much children pick up from human to human interaction. So this is very important to remember, because the way that Mariam and I will talk about screen time today is not in a don't use screen time, right? It's more in a, this is going to be supplemental in the development of your child's brain. It's going to be, and she actually phrased this, not me, it's going to be the dessert of the meal. The meal is really the language, the activities, their sleep, their nutrition, all of the main things that are helping their brain develop. And technology is going to be the supplemental that you're going to use to help that. Is there something you wanted to add in there?
Everything that you said is right. Another thing to have in mind is that the brain was meant to learn three-dimensionally,
yes,
not two-dimensionally.
Yes.
Later we're able to learn two-dimensionally because we already understand, But when you're from 0 to 5, you have no idea really what's the difference, But once it's built up, then obviously the process of technology in the life of a child is completely different.
And I actually want to bring up a study that was done about this, because she's so absolutely right. Children learn, okay, well, I'll bring up the study first. So they did a study where they were looking at, we're learning much more, especially now virtually, but FaceTime is being used a lot, right? So they wanted to do a study, and they did this on 20-month-olds and 30-month-olds, basically. So, and they wanted to see, can a child learn a concept just the same on FaceTime than they can in real life from a person, okay? So they had 4 scenarios. They had, the first scenario was, let's pretend I'm the teacher. So I'm the one in real life. Here's the child. I'm very engaged in teaching them this new concept. My emotions and my body language is very engaged with them, interactive. Okay, that's the first group of kids. The second group of kids is, again, me in person with them, but I'm pretty flat, not engaged, not interactive, still teaching them in person. Then they had 2 more groups that actually learned the same scenarios in FaceTime. So the first FaceTime teacher, same, very engaged, very interactive with them. And the second FaceTime teacher was actually pretty flat, again, not interactive. So when they looked at results, who learned the best? Who learned the quickest? Who learned the most? Number 1 was what we all expect, which was the first person. The one in person, interactive, engaged, these are the kids that were most receptive, right? But when the most amazing part of this study outcome actually was who learned the second best. And when I asked that to most people, people will actually think, oh, it's the one who was really interactive on FaceTime. And it wasn't. It wasn't. The second best learning group was actually the group who had in-person teacher, not as engaged. And the reason is literally what Mariam said. It's that at these ages, at 2 and 3 years old, they are not registering. They're registering screens as 2-dimensional, and 2-dimensional doesn't do so much for their learning capacity. They need to learn through sensory, through seeing, through feeling, through tasting, through moving, through all of these kinds of experiences. So I just thought that was a really cool